involved in a very, very short time frame. Again, yes. Yeah, we get a bit growled for our short time frames. Boy, oh boy, the Wellington time frames are shorter than anything we ever present. The Aotea Quarter Framework councillors. Almost there. Item 13. Welcome, Tim. And who else? Welcome, team. So we've had a good go at this while everyone gets themselves set up. I just want to acknowledge the huge amount of work that Councillor Darby has done on this. Thank you, Councillor Darby, for your close attention to detail on this issue. It's appreciated. Tim.
Kia ora, Madam Chair, members of the Independent Minority Statutory Board, councillors. Today we're seeking adoption of the Aotea Quarter Framework, and within that delegated authority for the Chair and Deputy Chair of the committee to make any minor editorial changes to the report. As you suggest, Madam Chair, there's been quite a lot of exposure to this particular project over several committee meetings and workshops. We do have a short presentation which just highlights the vision and outcomes and a little bit of commentary on a couple of the key projects moving forward, which I'm happy to kind of walk through, or we can just dispense with that and move straight to questions. I'll be guided by you. Fundamentally, the Aotea Quarter Framework seeks to update and refresh the Aotea Quarter Plan produced back in 2007. Many good projects delivered under that particular strategic plan. However, it's now run its course and perhaps doesn't reflect some of the more recent changes in the quarter, not least the fact that with the Aotea CRL station, we will see a complete change in the complexion of the place. It will become perhaps the most important transport node within the city region. And we're also facing changes in terms of the land use. We've seen a residential community now clustered around the core in a way that we haven't, and that brings with it a different type of response in terms of the offer and the way in which we deal with social infrastructure in this part of the city centre. So, as I said, I do have some brief slides. Would you like me to quickly go through them? The first of which is the vision out of the framework. And for those familiar with the 2007 Aotea Quarter Plan, in essence, we've just reaffirmed the key points within that. We've been through an exhaustive consultation process during September, October of last year, and the overwhelming feedback through that process was that the original vision did resonate still and just really needed to be reaffirmed and amplified. The Aotea Quarter is the civic, arts and cultural heart for the people of Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, a vibrant, resilient and unique place to indulge the senses, express creativity and celebrate our Māori, Pacific and diverse cultures. So that's the strategic vision for the place over the next 20 years. Falling out of that particular vision are four outcomes, which in essence we'll be pursuing, and each of those outcomes has a whole raft of projects, and they're all highlighted in the document. The agenda report seeks to draw out three key moves under each of those outcomes, and I'll touch on one or two of those as, further into the presentation. So the four outcomes, outcome one, Tahi, a civic and cultural heart, and this very much draws on the previous quarter plan and what it said about the place, the quarter core as the enduring home for the arts, culture, entertainment and civic life, creating a unique destination. And I guess one of the underlying themes coming through the consultation feedback was that the quarter isn't really punching its weight in terms of it as a destination. There's lots of good things going on, but collectively in the consciousness of both people of Auckland and nationally and internationally, it doesn't have the brand identity that it deserves. So there's a big effort required in that regard. Outcome Rua, transport-enabled development. I've already mentioned the City Rail link has been a key catalyst to change in the area. A public transport node that improves accessibility, supports growth and enables high-quality development. So in that particular outcome, we talk about CRL and the impact it will have on the area, but we also talk about the prospects around LRT, amongst other public transport investments. That particular outcome is also concerned with the development opportunities that are evident across the quarter, most notably those within council control for specific sites within the quarter core. Outcome Toru, supporting neighbourhoods, livable, vibrant, diverse inner-city neighbourhoods, engaging and supporting the quarter core. And this is one of the, I guess, the key shifts from the previous quarter plan, which really only concerned itself with the core, that civic core. It's becoming evident that we have a burgeoning residential community on the fringes of that core that looked to it for entertainment and for services. So there's a reciprocal relationship. So that the residents benefit from the core, and the core requires the residents around it. And the final outcome FAR, cultural and sustainable showcase, spaces and buildings that lead and showcase Auckland's drive for sustainability and celebrate its unique cultural identity through Tahi-a principles. So those are the outcomes. A whole raft of projects under each of them. I've just sought in a couple of slides to flag one or two of the key ones, and we thought these were important in part because we're already acting on them. The first of which, under the outcome Tahi, deals with the need for placemaking activation strategy for the quarter as a means of enhancing the destinational offer and better projecting the identity of the place. And an image there of the pop-up globe, which was actually enabled by a new team within the Auckland Design Office, focused on activation across the city centre. That project was taken up by RFA, AT'd, and is now being delivered. And the proposition is that all of those entities work more collaboratively and more closely than perhaps they are currently to deliver this type of project within the quarter. Already talked about the development opportunities on council-controlled sites, the four being West Bledisloe, Aotea Centre, or the land adjoining it, the Civic Administration Building and the South Town Hall site. And the expectation of each of those sites is that they, whatever development is realised on them, it has to contribute to that overall vision and delivering a vibrancy and the destinational qualities to support the CRL, amongst other things. Supporting our neighbourhoods through discussions with the committee and with some of the key stakeholders active in the quarter, it's become apparent that rough sleeping is a particular issue in this part of the city centre. It's a city centre-wide issue, but there is an initiative there to actually bring more focus on how we might address that particular issue, and I understand that is very much a live conversation with a meeting just earlier this week on how we bring that particular project forward. And the final project to highlight relates to the application of Tahi-a Māori design principles within physical improvement projects and developments within the quarter. We have currently two live projects in terms of schemes that are responding to the Tahi-a principles. We've got the Aotea station, CRL station, which has had a lengthy process over a good year and a half, 2 years. And that work is coming to fruition now. And the Civic Administration Building, as part of a previous resolution of this committee, there was an expectation set down that we'd apply the principles, and that again is very much a live conversation with a session had just this week with the prospective developers, those that have been shortlisted to move forward, in terms of giving them an oversight of what Tahi-a might mean in the context of that particular opportunity. So I'll stop there, if that's okay, and receive any questions.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor Crum? Oh, sorry, Councillor Casey, then Councillor Crum.
No, it's not a question.
Yep. Okay, Councillor Crum.
I'm just going to raise something that might appear negative, and it's entirely not. But just curious, because the pop-up globe photo that you've used under Outcome Tahi, and your reference to the collaboration between AT, the design office, AT, and so on, give us a little bit more on why what could appear to the average eye to be just another event. Why did you wish to bring that in and reference the collaborative effort for this area?
Well, first and foremost, the project is about activating what is otherwise a relatively dead space, a car park. The opportunity to create a destinational experience in that part of the quarter was seen as being really quite important. I think also the scale of the project is useful in considering the future outcome for that particular site, which is identified within the quarter for development. So it's a good test in terms of our acceptance of development on that site and what form that might take. So it's kind of serving a number of kind of purposes really in terms of some of what the strategy talks about.
Right, just the answer I was looking for. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Brewer.
Thank you, and congratulations on the compilation of this work. I suppose what got me, Tim, and you may have a clear answer for it, is the lack of numbers. I appreciate that it's a framework. I appreciate that some of it's well numbered in the LTP. But we've got, if we're looking at attachment item 13, the attachment A and the framework implementation plan, the time frames seem quite general when you talk about ongoing, short, medium, long, and the funding status is unfunded or funded. And I appreciate that this covers the breadth of council when you look across the CCOs and interdepartment. But I suppose my concern, looking back over the last 5 years, is not only have we seen a loss of numbers coming to this room at an operational level, but we're now seeing when we sign off capital projects, and this being a big framework encompassing a number of capital projects, no numbers whatsoever, a lot of narratives and a lot of great pictures and a lot of great aspiration and plans, but no actual numbers. And I appreciate that the psychology behind that might be, well, if we start seeing 400,000 or 4 million or whatever, we all go around the table and start cherry picking what we like and what we think is good value and the likes. And I accept that the LTP has been signed off, but I think it would be helpful for the public and for elected representatives, is rather just to have every project listed as short-term and funded, to actually have a delivery date and a number or approximate number beside it. But that's just my view.
Thank you. Through the Chair, a much debated matter amongst the project team. A framework is just that. It's the bones upon which you hang lots of detail, and on that basis we felt it was probably not the place for the absolute detail, but that detail is required. And actually we did have a discussion as to whether we could have a kind of a real-time implementation plan which was somehow linked to the framework, so that and I understand that there are other strategies within council that have just such a site where further detail can be accessed. That's could well be a possibility here. So I think that next level of detail really needs to be worked up through the Development Programme Office as we move from strategy into implementation of this plan. So there's a discussion to be had in terms of how that gets worked through in detail and how it's presented back to the public. But we very much saw this as being the strategic high-level programme plan, implementation plan with further detail to follow.
So is there a monetary amount on the, if you added all what you've got in funding status as funded projects, if you added all those together across the CCOs under this big umbrella called the Aotea Framework, have we got a number on what's funded and a number on what's not funded? and what the total was.
Yeah, so we do have a number. I'd have to defer to Gavin in terms of what that is. We had a QS look through all of the projects and give us some broad order costs. So we do have a sense of what we're in for if we were to deliver all of these projects. I think the reality is some will be pursued and others will fall away, as is the case with these things. We don't have it in front of us.
Okay, maybe I should have said, Madam Chair, not do you have a number, but what is the number? Yes, we have a number, Councillor. Next question.
So
It's taken me 5 years to work through this, but I'm getting...
But that's why, Councillor, you'll note in A,
Yep.
we've made a change to that it's a 20-year vision document. So whilst we could say, you know, it costs 100 million, it costs 700 million, it costs $1 billion, that is... It's kind of interesting and probably, you know, newsworthy or social media newsworthy, but
that's cheerless, Madam Chair. That's cheerless. That's unfair.
Well, you
Can I ask a question about numbers without you attacking me?
I'm
It's
Councillor,
hardly wordy. It's hardly.
you're just being a little bit sensitive. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I see the point. The point I'm making is it is somewhat immaterial to the framework adoption.
It's not immaterial at all.
When we get to the long-term financial plan and the annual plan discussions, that's when we decide what we're going to do and when, and absolutely we need the numbers. What we're saying here is that the framework sets the 20-year strategic vision document. I'm not marginalising the discussion, I'm simply suggesting that there is a hierarchy of the way that we run through these decisions. Nothing wrong with asking for the figures, but we're just saying at the moment it's probably somewhat immaterial to the discussion that we're having at the moment.
Well, I disagree, Madam Chair. We're signing off a significant capital project here. It's dressed up as a framework, but that's what it is. It's a collection of projects.
No, we need to be really clear. We're not
And
signing off
I've asked, what is the funded amount in the long-term plan, the audited long-term plan? I haven't been able to get that answer. So I'll go back to the long-term plan, I'll highlight all the things, and I'll add it up myself.
Indeed. So I rest my case, and I probably made the point a bit shabbily, and I apologise for any offence caused. But we need to be really clear, we are not signing off a capital project list. So we can't be clearer than that. Mr Quinn, can you just re-explain the context of this, please?
Well, the intent is to create a reference point so that as all of these things work through, and you approve them or you don't, that we are building toward an outcome rather than a random set of events. So that's the reference point. The budget is obviously important, but we'll deal with that as we go through. The other thing, from a council perspective, we're trying hard to make sure that we plan what we're doing and then cascade into the operational outcome of that, so that we've got a good reference point. So it's not, obviously the numbers are important and will become more so as time rolls by.
So just to further on that, and a very good example of why it's critical that we view this as a 20-year strategic vision document and not a capital list of projects that be undertaken immediately. When we look at the civic administration building, we need to just be very clear that the outcomes required in here are simply strategic vision. They may be completely undeliverable, and this issue will come to the next Finance Committee meeting where you're going to need to make some very clear decisions with the numbers, Councillor Brewer, on what the future of the civic administration building is. So that's, you know, my point is when we come to each capital decision, that's when we have a hard, difficult and nuggety look at the figures. But to try and cost this up right now when it's a 20-year process, I think is somewhat unrealistic.
Well, Madam Chair, it's not, because they're all in the LTP. Half of them are funded, and I'm saying, can I have a collective of the short-term, medium-term, actual, not hypothetical civic building, but the projects that are funded and what they add up to. Otherwise, if you think that a better process is to send me away and to look through the LTP with my highlighter, then I'm happy to do that, but just give me the option.
No, we can do the ones that are funded, absolutely, which the staff said yes to. But to endeavour to fund a 20-year visionary, or endeavour to come up with figures.
The officers have said they've got the numbers for both funded and unfunded, so it's not an unreasonable question, Madam Chair.
No, I think we're talking past each other. We're not disagreeing. Councillor Walker. Sorry, Councillor Darby, then Councillor Walker, then Councillor Wood.
Oh, Madam Chair, I'm abreast of it, so maybe others, you can take the other questions and then come to me last.
Cool. Happy to do that. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, just had a question around the civic administration building and surrounds. The comments in this refer to the design and a number of other things. They don't mention much about the civic history of the building and place that has in, I'd suggest, the soul of Auckland. Or is there any mention about any possible future civic use of that building, which is certainly what I advocate, and I'm talking about well into the future. And any consequences of putting something else in there whereby the council is effectively, or the city, Auckland, has effectively lost control of the future of that building. So I just wonder if you make some comments around that in response.
I can in part answer that question. I might have to, Clive's in the room, isn't he? Defer to Clive in terms of some of that content. In terms of the content as it relates to the civic administration building, there is a significant amount of information available around the heritage values, which had featured perhaps more fully in an earlier iteration, but it was felt that it was a level of detail that wasn't required for this particular document. That said, it will be captured as part of the design and development brief for the civic administration building as it moves forward through that procurement process. So it's very much front of mind in terms of the approach to that particular site. In fact, there was a briefing yesterday of the shortlisted developers with the heritage team in terms of what those elements are, and they walked through the building and had a kind of a real sort of discussion around each of them. If it was deemed appropriate that we needed to include some of that kind of commentary around the heritage features in the body of the document, and I mean that's something we can certainly accommodate. In terms of the public feedback and the sequencing of this particular document and the conversation around the civic administration building was set down by the Auckland Development Committee several months ago. It was felt that the quarter framework and the consultation around it was the means by which we'd gain an understanding of what the public of Auckland wanted from that particular site. And Appendix B captures the feedback received through all of that engagement. With regards to the civic administration building, the overwhelming view was that retention was preferable, subject to finding an alternative use. There wasn't much in the way of discussion around the end use. In fact, people just wanted to see the building reused. They weren't actually particularly concerned about what that use was, and I guess that's the kind of it's not expressed particularly in the document, but that was the kind of the theme that came through that consultation.
So, Appendix B, is that in this?
It's in those.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Or are you referring to Attachment B?
Attachment B, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so is there a prospect of that building continuing to have a civic function?
So, Councillor, just what I was trying to say before, rather than going to this now, this is the item that will be coming to the next Finance Committee agenda, where we've got some pretty tough decisions to make about the future of that building. So we can't go into that now. We have neither the right team nor the information in front of us. So next finance meeting, that's where we do it.
My question was, is the possibility still open? That's all.
And the decision sits with us on how much money we want to put in the budget.
For it.
To be blunt. Councillor Wood.
Yeah, thank you. Just in relation to the Aotea Centre, I think I might have asked you this some time ago, but there is no kind of road or any way access for vehicles, and I'm thinking of big conferences that Auckland's had in the past where motorcades have had to bring people to Aotea Square or Aotea Centre. So have you been talking to the Convention Centre or Sky City and Are they going to become the focal point? Because I think those kind of events have been held at Sky City in recent times, haven't they? So what's come out of that?
So RFA are very conscious of the need to maintain and, where possible, improve access to their facility, and their proposed upgrade and potential redevelopment of their site is likely to include an improved access arrangement. There has been some discussion as to what that means in the context of the civic administration building and surrounds, and whether we can actually take some sort of access off Grays Ave. That's been explored currently and costed, and I guess will be, again, a feature of the conversation as part of the Performance and Finance Committee.
So as far as the costings are concerned. Okay, so when,
Yeah.
I mean, we're signing this off for this
Yeah.
today, but that's still up in the air to some extent, isn't it?
Well, it's a level of detail that I don't think the framework need necessarily concern itself with. But I mean, there's some discussion in the document about the need for improved access, both from a vehicular perspective, but also from a pedestrian and cyclist perspective. So that, as a principle, it's established, but the detail will fall out of those projects rather than the framework itself.
Okay, thanks.